People say to me that you make this look so easy, but it's not. And you know what makes it harder? Is when people are talking when you're talking. You like that, Mayor? It's harder, right? I may not appear to be nervous, but I'm nervous because I'm representing our fabulous Lieutenant Governor Sheila Y. Oliver. In her absence, before I get to that, how were the morning sessions? Show me by a round of applause. The people who work really hard at this are probably not in the room right now, but we'll share with you that you applauded that this morning was really good. And we're happy that you're here. We're happy that you took the time to drive to Atlantic City, which is a great city, by the way. Shout out to Mayor Marty Smalls. Yes, I'll do that for the Atlantic City people. But you being here demonstrates your commitment post-pandemic to make a difference in housing. And I like to say this, we all live in affordable housing. Yeah, I always get the murmur too, Janelle, like, I don't live in affordable housing. Yes, you do. You live in what you can afford. And if the pandemic didn't teach us anything, it taught us about what we can afford. So we all live in affordable housing, and it's our responsibility that can afford a little more to help those that cannot. And this is a great segue into this great man that I'm going to introduce. I got a whole bunch of stuff here, Mayor, but I'm going off script right now. I am. I will say he's the 40th mayor of the city of Newark. He has deep roots in Newark. His mom and his dad lived in Newark for more than 80 years. He has defied expectations his entire life. You know, Mayor, when your dad is as famous as your dad is, sometimes you hide in the shadow from your greatness and your excellence. But I'm here to say that you didn't do that. You've exceeded beyond his legacy of what he could have hoped for not only his family, but for his beloved city of Newark. And I commend you for that, and we should give him a round of applause for that. We know you reduced crime, you lowered unemployment, you retained control of your schools, but you are such an innovator at the forefront, and I think you thinking, like right now, you always think, why not? How can I? We can do it, and you make it happen. Anyone who has watched you over your tenure as mayor is excited not only about the potential for the city of Newark, but how we can replicate your success, not just throughout the state of New Jersey, but throughout the world. You bring a level of compassion and empathy to understanding where everybody is in their walk of life, and you develop policy and provide leadership that addresses that. And not many leaders do. Sometimes we lead for the position, and this mayor leads for the people. I'll say it again. Sometimes we lead for the position. We want people to look at us. We want people to see us. We want people to acknowledge us by our titles. We are placed in these positions, Rob Long, by God to make a difference. And it's a ministry, and it's accountability, and it's a responsibility. And it's my pleasure, Mayor, to introduce you to people that know you, introduce you to people that are here, dare I say it, to get a word, to get inspired, to get motivated, to continue the difficult work that we all do. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce the mayor of the city of Newark, the Honorable Ras Baraka.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I got to bring you with me on the road. I appreciate it. I want to thank all of you for being here. Obviously, I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor, Sheila Oliver, for putting this together and thinking it not robbery to ask a little kid from Newark, New Jersey to come and be a keynote speaker here today, and the governor of this great state, and everybody else who felt it not robbery to trek down here and be a part of this conference, which I think is probably one of the most important convenings that we have in the state annually. I know it's the first time we get back together in a long time since 2020, since COVID-2019, really, since COVID-19. First time we got to be together, and I know how difficult it was. I don't know what the experiences have been like for everybody else, but in Newark, we were having a difficult time, and by God's grace and the work of the people and the institutions, we did what we could to keep as many people as alive as we could, and we did that without shame or regret, and we will do it again and again and again if we needed or had to do that. And so I think it was important for me to at least say that, because most of the things we're talking about now have become exacerbated because of what we just went through. And sometimes storms happen to wash things away, and sometimes storms come to reveal things. And I think this storm has revealed so much about our character, about who we are as people, as a country, as a state. It reveals so much about the weaknesses in our infrastructure, the weaknesses in our democracy, and who we are and who we say we are supposed to be. It reveals so much. But the great thing about Revelation is that you get the opportunity to do something about it. And this is our opportunity to do something about it. I'm so glad and so happy. I treat every day now like it's my birthday because of all of the devastation I've seen during COVID. There were over 1,000 or some odd people that died in Newark. Every day that I get to get up and breathe and walk and move and think is a grand day for me. So I treat every day like the next day won't come. And I heard one of the pastors in Newark say that you never see a U-Haul behind a limousine, or behind a hearse, because you can't take the things that you accumulate in life with you. You can't take the things with you that you accumulate, and you can't take the things that you do with you. So the question is, what are you leaving behind? James Baldwin said, anybody that has struggled with poverty knows how extremely expensive it is to be poor. I would add that our fate is less determined by our inability to create a society where all are comfortable, but more so by our fear of the natural disruption of those who eat at the cost of others' starvation. I know some of us have come down here for many different reasons, and you might not be prepared for some of the things I may say, so if you get offended, it's for the person next to you. I'm from the largest city in the state, where the average income is somewhere around $35,000 a year, and the cost of an average home is near $325,000 or more. 75% of our residents are renters, and according to the Rutgers-Klein report, the rent that is considered fair based on housing subsidies for a two-bedroom is actually $680 more than what the typical Newarker can afford. Even low-income housing tax credits produce housing that is about $400 more expensive than what renters can afford in Newark. Newark is made up of essential workers, a title we were given during the pandemic. The name was given during this time, and the work was made essential, but not the wages or housing. So we got sick and died at larger rates than most Americans and disproportionately more than most in New Jersey. We drove the buses, we waited the tables where people refused to wear their masks. We cooked the food in buildings where others worked from home. We took care of the elderly. We were the cashiers at crowded supermarkets, custodians and taxi drivers, nurses and phone operators. And the pandemic made the work essential, but after work, we went to homes where we paid more than half of our salaries on rent. We lived with multiple people in our home in densely populated neighborhoods with no real way to social distance, so we lost our grandmothers, our fathers, and our siblings. We lived in communities that were struggling with housing before the pandemic, which have become exacerbated as a result of it. And many experts talk about the inequity in the delivery of health care that created difficulties in our communities. But I would argue that the inequity in housing choices and the lack of housing itself helped to create a perfect storm for Black, brown, and immigrant communities. But before I go on, I have to say that the lack of decent and affordable housing, as was just pointed out, is not merely an issue regulated to my community or race or nationality. It is a deeply American issue. What we have to address is the real, equitable, and just solutions administered to all, irrespective of race, nationality, class, or status of citizenship, meaning that the way we solve these problems have to be equitable and fair and just. We didn't get here by accident, and we have the resources to deal with it, meaning we can actually fix these problems. I know this because while most people came here looking for the promise, I come from a people that were brought here to provide other people promise. There's a great book called The Crabgrass Frontier, written by Kenneth Jackson, that talks about the suburbanization of America and how, on the one hand, the federal government, under the New Deal, created the Homeowners Loan Corporation that encouraged middle-class white flight from urban cities of America by financing low-cost loans, no down payments, and save people from foreclosure. The creation of FHA itself was designed to facilitate access to affordable mortgage credit for low and moderate first-time home buyers for single and multifamily homes. Millions of us have not benefited from that yet or still. On the other hand, the same group graded certain areas based on desirability, something we know as redlining. They purposefully discouraged investment in urban areas, which went farther than just housing. It also impacted healthcare and supermarkets, thus food deserts and high rates of mortality in communities of color. So it was understood that it was necessary to subsidize home ownership, create deliberate opportunities to pave first a pathway out of economic peril and a road to creating a sustainable middle class and wealth building through government-funded ownership programs. Government-funded ownership programs. But because of racism and ignorance and foolishness sometimes, this didn't happen across the board. In Newark, millions were put into what we call projects, or low-income housing buildings that in less than 10 years became almost obsolete. And we have been spending millions and millions of dollars ever since to correct that error. So today, we have a wealth gap in this state that is one of the largest in the nation, largely driven by housing, the rising cost of housing, and the lack of home ownership. In New Jersey, the median wealth for white families is about $322,000. For Latino families, it's about $26,000. And for African American families, it's about $17,000. This is tragic, to say the least, in one of the richest states in the nation. And it becomes And it really becomes important to me when we are analyzing what has been done so we can discuss what can and should be done. We don't need sympathy or sympathizers. We don't need policies with no action. We don't need saviors and opportunists. We need opportunity and risk takers. We do not need formulas. We need investment. We do not need complicated, difficult formulas. that devise ways to not give us the money that we need. We actually need investment in our communities immediately. So let's make a concerted decision to stop just discussing what can be done and have the courage to actually do it. We don't need the same answers from the same old voices, the same faces in the same places telling us the same stories of how things can't be accomplished. We actually need a new deal now, an urban Marshall Plan today. We need a deal that goes beyond the borders of Newark and reaches as many people as it needs to. The same way the GI Bill was meant for veterans, but many Americans who weren't veterans benefited from it. So what should we be doing? In Newark, we are trying to address multiple issues at once. With the help of our Equitable Growth Commission, one of the first in the nation that helps us examine, create policy, and act on ensuring that the economic progress that the city is experiencing benefits the most vulnerable and is done from a lens of equity and inclusion. This means we have to be innovative, creative, and bold with our solutions. The pandemic has forced us to move even faster, to deal with recovery and equity at the same time. It's difficult, but it can be done. It's important to also note that none of the things that we're trying to do in Newark are even remotely possible without collaboration, without cooperation, without the support of the resources and partners in the state, without the governor, the lieutenant governor, DCA, NJHMFA, and all the organizations and so on. And so we have to have a collective and collaborative effort to get this economy moving and to build housing for all New Jerseyans. Our work has been centered around equity and access all of the time. Our recovery and development strategies are designed to ensure that the momentum in our downtown brings investment and opportunity to areas of our city that have been decades disinvested in and neglected. We are working hard to make Newark more affordable and to ensure that all Newarkers have access to resources. Based on recommendations from the Equitable Growth Commission, we created a 5-year housing goal in the peak of the pandemic. And to jumpstart that effort, we created a $20 million housing initiative targeting families earning $32,000 or less, which is about 30% of the AMI for a family of 4. And more than a third of those people that are creating that housing are Black, brown, and women developers. We strengthen our inclusionary zoning ordinance, which requires developers to set aside 20% of their units at 15 or more at affordability levels of 80, 60, and 40% of the AMI. And I know there are developers out here that are screeching, saying, oh, we can't do this. That's not true. You can, you should, and you must. Developers that petition not to build on site would have to pay into Affordable Housing Trust Fund $180,000 per unit, up from $25,000, which is actually the current cost of construction. We're also using the Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars to help preserve existing affordable units, to invest across the city in projects that create more units of affordability that go above and beyond what the IZO calls for. And as a result of the recent report done by Rutgers, the Climb report titled Who Owns Newark, we accelerated many of our goals and began responding to these faceless LLCs that are buying private property and turning them into rental units way above what Newarkers can presently afford. We're creating municipal legislation covering properties that are not currently under rent control that imposes a surcharge on landlords that raise rents year over year above 5%. These fees will be directed to Affordable Housing Trust Fund to further invest in affordable housing. We are deed restricting all city-owned property and Newark Land Bank property to keep it affordable and give first right of refusal to nonprofit affordable housing developers. We've also gathered community developers, residents, affordable housing advocates, nonprofits, and CDFIs together to do something very transformational. We are creating an acquisition fund to obtain property in neglected communities and parcel them together with city properties so we can have a city-wide spread of community development, blocks and blocks at a time, that we can ensure will remain affordable in both rental units and home ownership. We are creating a city pathway to make the process less cumbersome and more expeditious. This will become one of the largest public-private partnerships with community-based developers the city has ever seen, and probably even the state. But that is not enough. We are not content with creating units for rent that are affordable. It seems like when we're having these discussions, this particularly when it comes to our community, the conversation stops there. We are interested in building wealth, not just renting. I know usually when people think of affordable housing, they see a picture of somebody that looks like me. But affordable housing means a whole bunch of things. It's a mother, a family just had a divorce, they have children to raise, the new income, less income that they have in their household to get a new place. Affordable housing is somebody who just lost their job and is now trying to find another place to live. Affordable housing are kids who are coming home from college, who now are getting new jobs, who need a place to stay in the communities they were born and raised in. Affordable housing is also people who've worked 2 and 3 jobs that can barely make ends meet because we don't have the courage to raise the minimum wage to affordable levels. And so they're working hard and hard to find a place for themselves to live. Affordable housing has many faces, and we see one face when we talk about affordability, which makes it difficult for us to create the solutions that we actually really need. We're interested in building wealth and not just rent. We're interested in building wealth, not just rent. And so when you build wealth, you have to talk about home ownership. You have to attack decades-long discrimination and neglect that purposefully locked generations out of the housing market and condemned communities to a permanent cycle of poverty. We have used our land bank, one of the state's land banks, and created opportunities to take blighted and underused property and put them back on the tax rolls through innovative programs and keeps them affordable. They stood up artist housing on Clinton Avenue in Newark that provides live workspaces for artists and an indoor cafe owned and operated by local black businesswomen. They rehabilitated homes through our Move-In Ready program that allows residents to purchase homes for the first time that are ready to be moved in. Our Section 8 homeowners program, with the help of our housing authority, takes residents that were previously in public housing using their housing choice voucher and apply that money they were using towards rent to a mortgage for a home that they now own. They do not have to pay a down payment, and the homes are developed. They are developed by local MWBE contractors. And we are currently working on a program with NACA and the Bank of America to offer this program of no down payment and affordable home ownership to any resident, not just Section 8 holders, but to any resident that qualifies that are 60% or below AMI. The land bank will sell them the property for $1, and the money they borrow to redevelop the home will be their mortgage, again, with no money down. We have a Live Newark program that provides no interest forgivable loans to residents for closing costs up to $10,000. And these are just a few things that we're trying to do in the city of Newark, along with creating artist collaboratives and providing low-cost or free broadband to all of our residents, and bolstering and developing opportunities to put shelter and roofs and housing over hundreds of Newarkers who are residents that do not have addresses. And so we're being as creative and innovative as we can, because when we talk about affordable housing, sometimes in that discussion we miss the most vulnerable in affordable housing, and those are people who have no housing at all. These are people who are living on the sidewalk, who are living behind Home Depot, people who are living on the church steps that we walk past every single day. And when we decide to build something, people say, I like what you're doing, but just don't do it on my block. I like what you're doing, but don't bring homeless people to my neighborhood. But the homeless people are already in your neighborhood. They live in the store down the street. They live in the backyard that's abandoned. They live in the house that was not redeveloped. That's where they live. And they do their business in our community as well. And so they're already in our neighborhood. We just have to have the courage to do something about what's in our neighborhood that we refuse to see. I know that's kind of difficult for people to put their mind and their hands around, but if you're talking about housing, let's talk about the whole thing. These are not revolutionary ideas. I know some people saying, oh, this is pretty radical. These are not revolutionary ideas. This is something that this country was doing building decent and affordable housing and putting people in homes and making sure that people had opportunity in times that were dire, were difficult, when the country was in a deep recession, even a depression. People decided to do something about it. I think that the courage that folks had then is the same courage that we need to have now. Decent and affordable housing is something that we need. It is a privilege, right? It is a privilege for us to build the housing that's necessary for the people in our community. Decent and affordable housing is necessary so people do not have to choose between medicine over rent or food over eviction. Pathways to wealth and home ownership should be clear and attainable. And we have a responsibility as a nation, as a state, with so much prosperity to make sure that all have access. Maya Angelou said that out of all the virtues, courage is the most important, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue. We know what needs to be done, and we know how to do it. The problem is, do we have the courage to actually make it happen? Do we have the will to do the things that we know need to be done? We have the resources to make it happen in one of the richest states in the nation. Do we have the will to actually do it? We have all of the literature, all of the data, all of the resources, all of the brilliant people in this state that work for all of the agencies that exist that are sitting in this room today. Do we have the will to collaborate with one another to end homelessness in the state of New Jersey? Do we have the will to collaborate with one another to make sure that housing is affordable to all people in New Jersey? Do we have the will in the state of New Jersey to come together and say that housing is not a commodity, that housing is a right, that housing is not a commodity, that housing is a right? Do we have the will to say that people should not be on the sidewalk, that people should have a place to live, that you should not be spending half of your salary on rent? Do we have the will to invest in neighborhoods that were disinvested in for centuries even? Do we have the will to do that? Do we have the will to bypass all of the special interests, to bypass everybody who wants to prevent us from making equity real in America, in New Jersey? Do we have the will to do the things that we know should be done? This place will never be what it was supposed to be. Will never be what it's supposed to be as long as there is inequity that we turn our eyes away from. We will never have the creativity that we're supposed to have. Our future will not be as coherent as it should be. We will not have our taxes decreased until we put people in the job market who are locked out purposefully. We will not have our taxes decreased until we put people in homes who can actually help you pay taxes in this state. If we lock people out of mortgages, if we lock people out of housing, if we lock people out of employment, if we lock people out of jobs and education, then we have what we have: inequity, and we also have backwards motion. If we want to move forward, then we have to have equitable development, equitable growth, equitable housing, inclusion, so you can do well and do good at the same time. In closing, I just want to say thank you for everybody for coming down here once again, for understanding that, and for all of the practitioners out there to understand that everybody has a right to have a roof over their head, that even in primitive times you had a right to put yourself in some kind of shelter you could find, that with all of us that are in here, the developers that I just spoke to, the new executives, the elected officials, all of the folks in here, the brain trust, the money, the power that exists in this room today. There are millions of people in New Jersey who count on the very few people in this room. This room looks crowded to you, but it's very small in considering the rest of the state of New Jersey. If we used the amount of power that we have in this room, just a little bit of us, use the amount of power that we have in this room, maybe having these conferences would not be as significant as they are now. That maybe we wouldn't have to come together so many times like this to talk about these things, because we would be actually doing them. And I pray as I go home to deal with all of the things that we deal with in the city of Newark every day. You know, I don't have the luxury to talk about problems or be pessimistic. I don't have the luxury of pessimism. I have to be optimistic all of the time. I have to believe that things can be accomplished. I have to believe that we're going to win. I have to believe that victory is in front of us. I have to believe that this stuff can be fixed, because how can you be in charge of it if you don't believe you can fix it? I can't afford to be a loser or be around people who tell us that we can't make this happen, that this is too much. We can't create this. We can't develop this. This is going to cost too much. Where are we going to get the money to pay for this? Well, where are we getting the money to pay for all of the poverty that we're having right now? I can't afford to be around people who say this just can't be done. I have to believe that it could be done. I have to have a higher belief in something greater than the smallness of your thinking. I have to believe in in a power in a God that's bigger than me. Because every time, if I look at the problems that come before me every day, and I depend on some of the people that are around me all the time, they'll never get done. They'll never get fixed. They'll never get changed. We'll never get anywhere. We'll never make motion. We'll never move ahead, because everybody around us is telling us how it can't be done, and worse, how it shouldn't be done, because we are comfortable with the status quo that some of us can eat while millions of us cannot. We're sitting in this room. We're sitting in this room because millions of people are not. We are eating because other people cannot. We have beautiful homes and other people will never have them unless we do something different, something radical, something revolutionary, something as revolutionary as the New Deal. So, representing the people who never had a deal, I didn't have a new one or an old one. I represent the only people who came here against their will. Come on now. So I didn't have a deal. The property I got, I pray and thank God for the property I got, because my people were the property. So I have a right to talk this way. And I'm never embarrassed about it either. And I think, if I do this and if I lift myself up, it'll lift everybody else up. And so the purpose of it is not just to talk about the things that I went through. It is to give you the permission to talk about the things you've been through as well. So prayerfully, when we walk out of here today, I've said something that excites you, agitates you, angers you, upsets you, enough to talk about it in the barbershop, the beauty salon, in your living room, at the table, wherever you are, whether you're talking about it bad or you're talking about it good, I want you to just talk about it. God bless y'all. Godspeed to y'all. Housing first, housing now.